The unvaccinated may have decided they're done with the pandemic. The pandemic is not done with them. Colorado's COVID hospitalizations haven't been this high since before mass vaccinations. Entrepreneurs who powered through the pandemic's initial shutdown reflect with lessons on resilience and flexibility. Election rigging conspiracy theories have taken full root in the Colorado Republican Party, from the chairperson to a newly announced Senate campaign. We have some questions about Glendale's curious new marketing campaign and a super hot way to get your neighbor's attention. Next. Colorado's current surge in COVID-19 hospitalizations, vast majority of them unvaccinated people, is now the worst since January, before vaccines were available to most of the population. Our COVID-19 hospitalization numbers topped 900 patients today, now 922. It's our highest patient count since January 4th. We've added more than 100 patients in 5 days. You see numbers like that, people needlessly getting seriously sick from COVID, and it can seem like we haven't learned anything. But the majority of Coloradans are vaccinated, and we have learned important lessons. Take all of those learned by Coloradans who powered their small businesses through the last 19 months. Some of them were really new businesses when the world went sideways. Here's Steve Steger.
Angel Johnson and Rye Finnegan each had an idea. Angel's was a clothing line.
Iconi is a motivational activewear line for women and men. I launched it in 2019 while I was still active duty Air Force at Buckley Air Force Base.
Rye, a network to help Denver startups find people to hire.
Paired is a community platform for senior startup leaders to be able to connect with each other in an authentic way.
They began the bulk of their business in early 2020. You know what happened next?
So our first product actually launched in January 2020, so right in the heart of the pandemic. So I had to throw my whole plan that I had in 2019, going into 2020 out the window.
I went full time to start Paired in January of 2020 and launched an original version of Paired on March 9th, 2020.
About a week later, the world was effectively shut down.
And all the relationships that we had put into place early on just froze on the spot.
It was no going to gyms and setting up pop-ups to get to know people.
Two startup leaders instantly found themselves learning the power of the pivot.
I really had to harness social media and just grow a community that way. And that way is a lot harder, I feel like.
While the hiring tool wasn't really working, the community of senior leaders that we had built around it was something that was ever more needed.
Rye completely changed course. Instead of focusing on hiring, he made Paired an online community for startup leaders in Denver. It now has several hundred members, and he says it keeps growing.
Most people that are in the startup world are ready to evolve quickly.
Angel got Iconi in front of people online and has built a big enough digital presence that back in November, Oprah picked her clothes as one of her favorite things. Now, business is booming.
I feel like if I can launch a business during a pandemic, I can pretty much do anything right now.
The Downtown Denver Partnership tracks tech startups in the city. In a recent report, they said 169 companies formed in 2020 in the city. That's impressive considering what all those companies were up against. There are about 1,000 startups in the city that employ, Kyle, about 7,000 people in the city center in Denver.
So if you're launching a startup, you're going to have some kind of unforeseen challenge. Global pandemic, probably not what people were thinking they were going to get hit with.
You know, I was struck by that. The fact that if you are a startup leader, you're already building a business plan, something's going to change throughout the course of that business plan anyway. So you almost have this built up flexibility in your DNA. So a lot of people could just pivot relatively easily. They will tell you that this was also the most challenging thing that they ever went through in their professional career. But they were able to pivot probably because they had it embedded inside of them.
Yeah, maybe pivoted a little bit better than some of us did. Thank you, Steve. Every day, it seems, we find more proof of just how deeply steeped election conspiracy theories are now in Colorado's Republican leadership. Yesterday, we told you about newly released sworn testimony indicating that GOP chairwoman Christy Burton Brown recently led an election rigging conspiracy theory group that has a militia arm. Today, Republican State Rep Ron Hanks kicked off his U.S. Senate campaign with a bang by shooting at a mock-up of a voting machine.
As our next senator, I will fight for our conservative values, and I'll start by targeting our broken election system. I'm Ron Hanks, and I'm running for the United States Senate. I'm Ron Hanks, and I approve this message.
So there you go. Hanks using a rifle to blow up equipment labeled Dominion voting machine. Colorado's Dominion voting machines have been the main target for right-wing conspiracy theories about how the election was supposedly rigged against President Trump. Feel like we should not have to say this, but we live in weird times and people believe interesting things. So I'll point out that's an office copier. It's not a Dominion voting machine. Hanks, who's from Canyon City, is running against Democratic Senator Michael Bennet. Hanks was in D.C. during the January 6th insurrection, which he blamed on Antifa. He then said that foreign intelligence agencies should intervene to keep President Biden from being inaugurated. Hanks has also joined 91 Republican state legislators from across the country in calling for a 50-state audit of the 2020 election. They're searching for the election rigging that they have claimed but been unable to find. Hanks signed on to that letter along with Colorado State Reps Dave Williams and Andres Pico from Colorado Springs and Stephanie Luck out of Penrose. Denver's ballot issues tend to get statewide attention because of how Denver's decisions can make an impact across our state. And Denver voters have significant issues to decide this year. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger simplifies the big stuff.
Denver residents are being asked to let the city borrow hundreds of millions of dollars for dozens of reasons to improve the zoo, sidewalks, convert hotels to homeless shelters, add bike lanes, playgrounds, even a new arena. But unless you're fluent in politices, you may not realize how simple of a question you're being asked to vote on.
I went to law school, and I still had to get out my Latin dictionary.
Scott Martinez is a former Denver city attorney who we went to for help simplifying the ballot language so even I could understand. For instance, ballot issues 2A through 2E are about letting the city issue bonds, borrow money, to pay for a number of needs. This is how long ballot issue 2A is in English. The bottom is the same in Spanish. But what's it mean?
If I were explaining this to my kids, who are going to be voters in just a couple of years, I would tell them what the city is asking is, can the city borrow $104 million to pay for necessary city improvements without raising your taxes? And there's going to be some interest on top of that. Is that okay?
See if this helps you with issue 2B. Can the city borrow $38.6 million plus interest for homeless shelters? How about 2C?
Yeah, the city's asking if it can borrow money to pay for transportation.
And 2D?
Can the city borrow some money to pay for Parks and Rec?
2E asks, can the city borrow $190 million plus interest for a 10,000-seat arena and public market at the National Western Campus? All these words for that.
In Denver, ballot questions are written by bond lawyers who use Latin and legalese to cover every single base and every single potential lawsuit that's out there. We can do better.
How can we do better? Write ballots for the people voting and not for the courts that they may end up in. The Latin part that Martinez talked about can be found toward the end of 2A and 2B. You're going to see something about ad valorem. Don't worry about it. The bottom line is your property taxes are not going to go up. No raising of the taxes through 2A and 2E. The question is whether you think the city should be able to borrow that money, which it will have to pay back with interest over time. Something that we figured out to do in a sentence. I'm sure there are people that will be handling the results of this that would say, look, it can't be that simple.
So speaking of simple, I know, Marshall, a lot of folks like to rely on what you do, which is where you kind of break down each issue one by one in very simple language and kind of say, here's the argument for, here's the argument against.
We'll be doing that again, just like we did last election. Ballots should be arriving starting Monday, most likely, next Monday. So we'll be able to start going through the process. There's 3 statewide ballot issues that everyone will have to vote on. We'll go through those. Denver has 13. There are some other cities that we may touch on too, but we're going to do it together again.
Oh, that'll be fun. All right, thank you, Marshall. Caregiving is emotionally and physically exhausting work for all of the Coloradans who care for somebody that they love at home. And for those families, the last 19 months have been isolating, frustrating, they've been painful and draining. A nonprofit that offers respite care for caregivers and their loved ones is about to restart its day program that gives seniors a sense of community and gives their caregivers a chance to rest and recharge. Your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign this week will help Seniors Resource Center better serve more families as they reopen their adult day center. If you know an older person who's isolated during the pandemic, you know the toll it can take on their mental and physical health. Senior Resource Center's Adult Day Center in the Denver metro area serves a dual purpose, provides older adults with the socialization they need, and gives their caregivers some free moments for self-care. These caregivers, often spouses or children, have been worked to exhaustion during the pandemic. The Senior Resource Center has also been strained after decades of doing this work in the community. So that nonprofit is consolidating their programs to focus in on the Adult Day Center and their in-home respite care, home visits that help older Coloradans stay in their homes longer and simultaneously give their caregivers a short break. And together we can help that nonprofit do more for more families. Text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 and I'll send you that link to donate. A few of you have told us that the text function has not been working for you lately. If that happens, you can always find the Word of Thanks link on the next section of 9news.com or right up at the top of our Facebook page or our Twitter account. And feel free to drop me a line as well and we'll troubleshoot the text tech issues together. As always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to Senior Resource Center as they give caregivers a bit of rest and relief while also providing more social connections for seniors. Denver City Council is talking about banning some tobacco products in the name of protecting minority communities. Glendale's new marketing campaign tells people they're not in Glendale, Arizona. Is anyone driving the streets of Glendale actually confused about this? And the most Colorado thing we saw today is somebody putting their spicy business right out in the open. Next. Colorado Democrats finally got some good news when it comes to redrawn political boundaries. A new congressional map gives Republicans, who are a statewide minority, a chance at a 50-50 map in our congressional delegation. The latest state legislature maps would keep Democrats in control. So to hold the state Senate, party needs 18 of 35 seats. The newest state Senate map has 17 solidly Democratic districts. Just 9 are firm Republican districts. The best chance for Republicans to regain one chamber at the state capitol would be in the Senate, and that is a really tough map for the GOP. The redrawn map in the state House has 37 firm Democrat districts, 4 more than they would need for control. Again, want to stress, we're talking about state legislature maps there, not the congressional map, which could split 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, if the GOP could win the newly created 8th district in Weldon-Adams County. All of those redrawn maps still need approval from the Colorado Supreme Court.
Another toasty October day, and late in the day, a little bit of haze and a little bit of cloud cover with the weather system crossing western Colorado, where temperatures were in the cool 60s. 80s along the Front Range. We'll see these numbers come down just a bit tomorrow. High and mid-level clouds are streaming over the area, but we're not getting a lot of rain or snow out of those clouds on the ground. High pressure will be the dominant feature for one more day in advance of a cool front that brings changes by the weekend. We have a few showers possible tonight and tomorrow west of the Continental Divide. But over the weekend, colder air means some of that rain could mix with snow way up high. Partly cloudy and 48 in Denver tonight. Tomorrow, sunshine, 78. Late day cloud cover sticks around through the evening. Almost 80 Friday, 20% chance of showers on Saturday. Cooler weather for Sunday and Monday, and then even cooler for Tuesday, 50s with a chance for rain.
The most Colorado thing we saw today is a spicy way to decorate your yard for fall. Jennifer was walking the dog in her new neighborhood in Aurora earlier this week. She walked past this yard full of trays of drying chilies. So many of them, she said you could smell them in the air. I'm guessing someone has or will complain about this because people will complain about anything. They shouldn't. That's awesome. That's Colorado. Send us the most Colorado things you see around town. Email pictures and video to next@9news.com or use the hashtag HeyNext on Twitter. Some countries recognize vaping as a safer alternative to cigarettes. Not this country, leading to more attempts to ban and restrict vaping, like the one being discussed in Denver. And Glendale's new marketing campaign is interesting. We'll take you inside their strategy. Next. Some on Denver City Council are proposing a ban on flavored vape and tobacco products, a ban with no exemptions. So that would include flavored cigars, menthol, even hookah bars. A lack of exemptions, they say, is designed to protect vulnerable and minority communities who have been targeted by tobacco companies.
But in 1953, only 5% of African American smokers smoked menthol cigarettes. Today, nearly 85% of Black smokers smoke menthol. This is the result of predatory marketing. You can see it right there. There are examples on the screen. In 1995, R.J. Reynolds created a marketing strategy called Project SCUM. SCUM stood for Subculture Urban Marketing. The purpose of it was to boost cigarette sales by targeting gay men and homeless individuals.
Many smokers have shifted to using vaping products over cigars and cigarettes for health reasons. And there are countries around the world that recognize vaping as a safer alternative to cigarettes. FDA does not. The one exemption included in Denver's proposed rule, as currently written, would be for anything that's FDA approved as a harm reduction tool. So if the FDA were to change its mind on vaping versus cigarettes, then it would be exempted in Denver. For now, Denver City Council decided to push off discussion on this until the end of the month. Fastest way to light up our feedback segment is to talk about the rules of the road for cyclists. So brace yourself. State legislators will consider letting people on bikes and scooters roll through stop signs if cars are around. So basically, if they're rolling up to an intersection with a stop sign, they can continue through at a slower speed if the coast is clear. At stoplights, they would have to come to a quick stop and then go through. So treat it like a stop sign. A legislative committee gave the green light to that bill for consideration next session. We'll stay on that. City of Glendale's marketing campaign had us do a double take recently. Banners and signs on Glendale streets reading, "This ain't the desert," with Arizona crossed out, or "This ain't Denver." I can understand somebody driving through Glendale mistakenly thinking they're still in Denver, but I would sooner think that confusing Glendale with the city of the same name in Arizona would be kind of an out-of-state problem. The city of Glendale tells us this is meant as an inside joke for locals, as the city's often mistaken for the Glendales in Arizona and California. No cheap joke either. Glendale's spending $250,000 on the campaign. Banners, flags, billboards, and a fancy website. thisisglendale.org. Giving older Coloradans the care and socialization they need, and giving their worn-down caretakers a bit of a break. Word of Thanks Project next. Your Word of Thanks campaign this week supports Seniors Resource Center as that nonprofit prepares to reopen its adult day center in Wheat Ridge, serving people around the metro area. That center serves two purposes. It gives older Coloradans the socialization they've missed during the pandemic, and it gives their caretakers, who are often at their limits these days, a bit of relief. You know, to take care of other things that need to be done, or just to rest a bit. Somebody from Senior Resource Center told me that their families have been counting down the days until their reopening of the day center after a pandemic pause. Can you blame them? I can't imagine the exhaustion of caregiving during the pandemic. Text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 and I'll send you that link to donate. Bunch more messages from folks tonight who say the text link is not working for them. This appears to be a tech issue that's cropped up in the last few weeks. We are working on it with the tech side. Please do look for that Word of Thanks donation link on the next section of 9news.com. You can find it prominently on our Facebook page or on our Twitter page as well. Apologize for the continued issues we're having with this. We'll try to get it worked out as soon as possible and appreciate your continued generosity, as Word of Thanks has now raised more than $4.7 million for Colorado's nonprofits since last year. We'll see you next time.